Welcome to Viseland, Mikey. What is going on this week? What's happening?
Well, we just finished up the NBA Finals. Jason, did you have a good time?
I did, and you know what? I loathe to mention it this early in the show, but I was right in my
You
prediction.
were correct.
Six. Whereas Michael, on the other hand, had all this faith in them and said Lakers in five. He's wrong. I am right. Keeps, it's a good reason to stay tuned into the show to really just like call us out on times that we're wrong.
Yeah, but like
It doesn't matter.
Lakers and Fivers, I think the important part, not the number of games, but just how right you were and how much, and actually like cheering for the right team in this situation as well, which you apparently were not. So,
yeah, truth be told, I was like rooting for Miami in pretty much every game, but
yeah,
I'm terrible, but
it hurts, bro. It hurts. Like, I understand the pain was what made you bring up the whole, oh, God, I had the Lakers in six. But
the Lakers didn't need me either.
I will give you full credit. You did have the Lakers in six. However, I believe Ferry died because he didn't have faith. That was, yeah.
I didn't, but it's like it was a great finals. I mean, I think obviously LeBron, gets into this new strata now. He joins the illustrious likes of John Sally, Robert Ory, and obviously his teammate now too, Danny Green. Only players to win championships with 3 different teams.
Yeah, I feel like one of those players is way different than the others. But yeah.
Talking about LeBron and John Sally shouldn't be compared together.
Yeah. I know you really dig John Sally and his vegan support, but yeah, he also was not in LeBron's stratosphere at basketball.
I'll also say he was on 3 teams. I think Chicago and the Lakers. I mean,
he played a part. Oh well, yeah. By the time he got to Chicago, he really played a part.
The Chicago and Lakers.
By the time he got to Chicago, it was basically like how would I compare it? Like J.R. Smith in this one. Like Dion Waiters, just like, okay, we're here. We came for the bubble. We're on this sweet team. Maybe we gave a little, leg up in practice. Who knows?
And the other thing, people were saying, of course, is Dwight did get a championship in Orlando.
He did. Not with Orlando.
Obviously, not the way that people thought it was going to happen.
I think he say he was going to win one the first time around with the Lakers, and that was a disaster. And
that was terrible.
Yeah, turns out that I think that there was probably a point where people, 1, never thought Dwight Howard would win a championship.
Totally.
And 2, we're hoping he wouldn't win a championship. And 3, we're thinking he would never win a championship. And all of those people were proven wrong.
Well, J.R. Smith just gets that championship ride too. He just comes in for the bubble.
I don't know if anybody has ever rostered more. I guess the Bulls during that 6-peat did have some weird people that got rings, but LeBron has brought in a whole bunch of randos that just are thank you for the ride, sir.
No, totally. I'm looking at you, Dion Waiters, JaVale. Basically, that was the majority.
Well, just over his 4 wins, yeah.
No, totally. But it's just it's so interesting because it's you look at this in the the grand history of Laker championship teams. You got LeBron, AD, but honestly, I think this is, out of the 17 championships, it's got to rank as far as pound for pound team, one of the wackest.
Probably. If you took a real deep dive, yeah, and that's I think the special thing that LeBron James has kind of brought to the table is that he'll I saw Dwight James had this absolutely absurd article today about how LeBron was ring chasing on these teams. First off, if you're not trying to win a championship, I don't know why in the hell you're playing in the NBA. Yeah. You probably don't have much of a competitive spirit. But at the same time, all of the teams he went to were teams that were not close to championship level before he got there. Granted, in Miami, they did bring in another player. No, but they brought in another player. And yeah, even before he got there, had they made the second round that year before? Something like that, right? I don't know. It didn't seem like Dwayne was taking them very far the year before he got there. But yeah, obviously Miami was the best team where he went to that year before. Then he goes to Cleveland. They had not made the playoffs or come close to it since he had left. And Kyrie, obviously a great player, but still not much going on there. Goes to the Lakers, and they were in a shambles, like still reeling.
Total rebuild, and I think he was, doing that because obviously they had that kind of a cap space build that he's kind of looking for, and they had the assets to get him that other guy. But yeah, I just think like even like Kobe's back to back, it's like I think of that team like just a deeper team of like better role players.
Yeah, I think also like better kind of, because Anthony Davis was clearly better than Pau Gasol.
No, I'm not saying
but what I'm saying is they had like a guy like Andrew Bynum, and then I think like Lamar Odom,
and then they had
Trevor Ariza, a little more help as far as like a complete starting lineup and like a five out there who you're like, okay, there isn't like a huge hole in a gap there. But yeah, so what we wanted to do here, and we'll talk a little bit more about the 2020 NBA Finals when we get to this point. But LeBron's been to the NBA Finals 10 times. We do top 10 lists on the weekly here at Viseland.
Big on top 10.
We wanted to rank his top 10 finals appearances. That pretty much only includes, we're going to obviously go over some of the playoff moments and everything along the way, but it will include his performances in the NBA Finals. So we wanted to rank from worst to best his top 10 finals appearances, and then we'll have like some reasons. And like honestly, it's a pretty loose list. And one thing you're going to realize, LeBron James is a fantastic NBA basketball player who's had some amazing finals moments.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll start off at kind of the low points, and then we'll get up to what we feel were his best championship moments, or best championships in general. So like championship series.
Yeah, because obviously he hasn't won 10 championships, but he
has not, but he has won 4.
Which is pretty good, 40%. I mean, again, in baseball, that you're a Hall of Famer.
It's more finals than many people. First off, well, it's more finals than 27 NBA teams.
Yeah.
And it's more finals wins than a lot of the best players. So
yeah.
Now has one more than Larry Bird. You go through. Like there are a handful of NBA guys. He's tied with Shaq. He's one behind Kobe. He's a couple behind Michael Jordan. He's a couple behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's one behind Magic Johnson. It's he's in pretty rare territory at this point. If you like, having 3 is exceptional, and having 4 puts him in pretty rare air, especially with the fact that he's been the best player on each one of his championship wins.
No questions asked. He is
unanimous this year.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
As great as Anthony Davis did play, LeBron James was the Finals MVP, and I think if you looked at this whole year, there's a very good case that if you kind of went like soccer style and did the whole Ballon d'Or, then you might have LeBron James there. But let's start with the list. Let's get into the list. Jason, LeBron's worst NBA Finals ever. What would your vote be?
I gotta say, they lost. Probably, losing in Miami, like that.
That first Miami team.
Yeah.
2011. Well, guess what? You're absolutely correct, because that's what I have on our list.
Yeah. It's just that team obviously was built. They came out with all the fanfare and all that. That aside, it's just you just had that expectation that they were going to win the championship. Like there should not be a team that's competing with them. And obviously Dallas had been a team that had never gotten over that hump. I mean, even the year Dirk won MVP, that's the year they also got knocked out in the first round. So it's like Dallas had, and Dallas also had that series against Miami. I mean, total different Miami team minus Dwayne Wade, where they went up, 2-0. Didn't end up winning. So it was like a little disappointing.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that in this season, so LeBron's record in Game 1 of the NBA Finals, I believe, is now 2-8, and this was the one before this year that he had won the game one, and they were actually up 2-1 in the series. So yeah, Miami, thinking the whole big three, they had played a really good regular season. I believe Dallas actually did. Dallas have home court? No, they didn't. I think Miami had home court advantage as well. Yeah. So Miami had home court advantage. And the reason I rank this one as LeBron's 10th in finals appearance, if you look at like game score and like I think even like as an all around, even efficiency, LeBron was a little bit better in this finals than what I will have his second to worst ranked finals. But I think in terms of just the team that he had and his performance in general, like he was coming off of a year before where he left Cleveland and people felt like his performance against the Boston Celtics was really disappointing and just like not the standard that LeBron James had kind of worked his way up to, especially since like they lost in a disappointing fashion in his second to last year in Cleveland as well when they played Orlando, and they ended up losing that series in 6. But LeBron was like putting up these insane performances to the point where you didn't really know what he could do. In Cleveland, you were just kind of wondering like, this is like not him, like this is not his level. And then in Miami, you were really wondering it because, just because of the team they had built and that he just wasn't as aggressive. His averages just seemed to go way down. Like, so pre-finals, in the regular season, he averages 26.7 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 7 assists, to like almost a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. In the pre-finals, before he got to Dallas, he was at 26 points per game, 8.9 rebounds per game, 5.5 assists per game, almost a 2-to-1 there too. And then his finals averages 17.8, shooting 48% from the field, 32.1% from three, and 60% from the free throw line, which was well below his pre-finals and regular season average. 7.2 rebounds per game, 6.8 assists per game, but 4 turnovers per game, 1.7 steals. But still, definitely, like Dwayne Wade was by far the best player in that series. A lot of that had to do, I felt, with the way that Dallas kind of their defense moved towards LeBron James. Like Tyson Chandler always seemed to be on the side of the court LeBron James was on. They did a great job playing team defense, and LeBron, even like Mark Cuban said, as like Skip Bayless, of course, was going, "Oh, LeBron, like you didn't even have to play defense," which is just utterly ridiculous. But Skip, like the way Mark Cuban described it, and what really happened was that they just kind of put LeBron in these difficult looks. They changed up their defense like over and over again, and LeBron usually did make the right read. But yeah, they just didn't have enough going on there. Dirk Nowitzki like didn't even have the most efficient NBA Finals either. Like that's the other thing.
It's like 90% from the free throw line.
Well, yeah, he was almost perfect from the free throw line.
Yeah,
but yeah, as far as like field goal percentage and everything like that, like a 16.6 game score over the series. He's like dead even offensive and defensive rating. Obviously, like it goes beyond that, and he was like nobody could say that he wasn't the best player on Dallas, and he didn't make like some absolutely instrumental shots, and he was the best player on their team, and he was who the team was built around. But yeah, got a lot of great contributions from Jason Terry. Tyson Chandler's defense was huge. Sean Marion did a great job on LeBron. Even Sean Stevenson was playing some minutes and played well above his role. So
I think JJ Barea, didn't he kind of earn himself into a contract?
JJ Barea was great.
Yeah, like I think he was.
Barea, they had a lot of guys playing well beyond their role. Jason Kidd, of course, as well.
And you look at this Miami team too. It's like, okay, they have the three, they have their big three, but it's like you look at some of these other, because things do get better for him, in Miami progressively. But it's like there's some names like I had to go back and going back and looking at the roster of Miami kind of just like brings you back to that. I barely remember Mike Bibby.
Yeah.
Being on that team. Like that was like, oh, you're like, oh yeah.
He was kind of like he was, I think, a guy who got cut like mid-year and just kind of signed with them. And
He started
you just thought it would be kind of like more guard depth.
He started 5 games. You had Joel Anthony was your starting center.
I know.
Which is like
that was a disaster. I think that next year they finally realized it's like, oh, we can play Bosch at center, and then we're way better. And you add another shooter in there. I think they realized also they had Mike Miller, but Mike Miller really didn't play very much.
No, yeah, he was pretty 15 minutes a game.
Yeah. So I think they kind of figured out ways to play it. Not to mention they added a crucial piece also, who we'll talk about later, who was huge during the first finals win for LeBron James. But yeah, I would say this is his most disappointing NBA finals. This is like the one where you just were like, this is well below the level that we expect of LeBron James. And hence why I would rank. I would say this was the one finals that he lost where he was favored to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like all the other finals losses are either teams that were like pretty equally matched or I feel like all the other ones honestly were teams that were favored to win. But this one, I think they were favored to win, and you just kind of expected more of a fight from them. Like those last 3 games, I remember being quite disappointing.
And those are still times where LeBron,
they were close.
And people
are saying
those things about LeBron at that time too. Because he's getting 17 points a game, not like 30 or so. Something that you wanted to be that aggression versus
you expected him to be more aggressive, and then he he didn't even have a huge game at all during that series. His high was in the first game. He scores 24 and has a 21 game score, and then everyone after that is pretty mediocre. He scores, and usually when LeBron is kind of facing an elimination game, he kind of goes for the gusto. I think he shot he was 9 of 15 from the field, but for only 21 points, so didn't get to the line a lot, and 6 assists to 6 turnovers, well below what we would come to expect from LeBron, what we had expected from LeBron, and hence I would rank that as his low moment in the NBA Finals.
Another roster tidbit on that team that I just realized too, Zydrunas Ilgauskas was on that team. His former teammate who was an all-star when LeBron was merely just getting started in the league.
Yeah, somehow he was an all-star over LeBron James during his rookie year, which is just absolutely
forever living in it. But it was just it was one of those teams you lock all the cap in on your 3 guys, and it's like, who else are we filling in the?
Oh yeah, that was where they kind of needed to get creative.
That's why it's
they kind of spent a mid-level on Miller, and they had Mario Chalmers, but they needed to they needed to get a little creative there and look for veterans that kind of wanted to take a little bit of a pay cut to try and run for an NBA Finals or an NBA championship. And that first year
at the time as it is now. Now it's you've seen that a lot more with Golden State as well. Guys are.
I don't know. I felt like Boston had a few guys that definitely went along for the ride, and they had a couple of guys that were pretty cool to come in there, and then the Lakers really, I don't know. Well, yeah, I will remember even Mitch Richmond going to the Lakers and
the 2000s.
that was well after his prime and everything. Yeah. But yeah, he there have always been a few guys who just kind of try and get one on the way out. Gary Payton with the Heat in 2006.
Yeah, but I feel specifically taking the minimum, taking the minimum. I don't know. I feel it's a little more recent, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's happened, but yeah, maybe it's a bit more prevalent now and a bit more kind of advertised.
Or just, yeah, just like advertise it obnoxious. But yeah, like,
I don't find it obnoxious, Jason.
Sometimes it's just.
You and I see that in two different ways, sir.
Oh, totally. Oh, for
But,
sure. So moving on, number 9.
Number 9.
It's better.
It is
slightly, incrementally.
It's not really like better from in terms of his actual play during the finals, but it was definitely a better story as far as like his getting to the finals at all and some of his playoff moments during that season. I will say, like during that 2011 run, his series against Chicago was really impressive when he was guarding MVP Derrick Rose and completely shutting him down at the end of the game. He did have some good moments there, but yeah, like in 2007, I think you ultimately remember just one LeBron kind of like coming into his own. He had just made the playoffs like that year before and had a pretty impressive showing, made it to the second round. I believe took the Pistons to 7 games. And then
that was a deep Pistons team. That was like they still had that core from there.
Yeah.
Their
It
championship.
it was a really good Pistons team. That eventually lost to the Heat in 2006. But so 2007, they lose the first 2 games to the Detroit Pistons, and LeBron plays pretty terrible to mediocre in both, by his standards, of course. And then over those last 4 games, he has some incredible moments, including what I think now goes down in LeBron James history is one of his greatest moments, Game 5 against the Detroit Pistons in the conference finals, where he completely took over the game, scored 29 of his team's last 30 points, won the game in overtime, has this like epic dunk between Detroit's defense. And this was Detroit without Ben Wallace. I believe we had brought it up, or I brought it up on I brought it up. Oh, you know where I brought it up? I brought it up on It's About Joy, the new podcast with PD Webb that I want to give a huge shout out to as well. Episode 2 just dropped. It has me and a couple other guys talking about what brings us joy in basketball. I love the format of the podcast. I talk about LeBron James. For those that do not know, I am a huge fan of LeBron James. I love watching him play basketball, and he brings me great joy as a basketball player. I wanted to shout out that podcast and talk about his Game 5 performance. So as I say on PD's podcast, you realize in that game, like it wasn't Mike Brown like having a really well-coached game either, because they were out of timeouts with 5 minutes left in the game. Like I was rewatching and I'm just like, what in the heck? Like, what is going on there? But yeah, LeBron has one of the most impressive individual performances. I remember him trying like hell to get his teammates involved too, and them just missing shot after shot. LeBron just saying, I'm doing this myself.
Yeah, this is one of those teams you look around the roster and you're like, why would LeBron leave Cleveland? And then you look at this roster, you're like, oh yeah, that.
I thought he never really had a chance to like build a team there either. And
I don't think they were drawing
the first time around.
They weren't really drawing in, but it's like you look at like again, like second leading scorer in the finals is Drew Gooden.
Yeah.
Third leading scorer is Daniel Boobie Gibson, and I think like this is a good like playoffs for him because like people hadn't heard of him, kind of put his name out there, and then it just goes downhill from there. And I mean, you got like Zildrunas, who's like skilled, but obviously like physically, athletically, not the ideal post player you'd want to pair LeBron with. I mean, Varejao was like scrappy, but again, not like.
These are not the players who you're thinking, oh, okay, these are the guys that are on a championship contender.
And of course, I mean, Damon Jones, I mean, was a nice shooter, but I mean, he thought of himself at a different level than like what he was in reality. So again, like
Damon Jones.
I
just remember Damon Jones in 2005 for the Heat when they played the Pistons in the conference finals, and I think during that last game, Damon Jones puts up like a donut And then that next year they get Jason Williams, and Jason Williams during the last game of the conference finals is like going off. And I'm just like, okay, that was a big upgrade.
I'll tell you a funny Damon Jones story. So like when I
go
did,
ahead.
yeah, worked at a store. Damon Jones came in. He had a cigar in his mouth, which is like something that is always like a sign.
In a store, okay, that's
a store, like not lit, but he's got the cigar, he's got the sunglasses, the whole thing. And so I ran a transaction, and it's like thousands of dollars, like. And he kind of looks away from me, and you can tell in his mind he's going like 100, 200, 300, 400, but he's like counting out his money, and then he like gives it all, like then he like turns back around and gives it all to me like one thing, like, oh, I magically already had the $7,000 ready. Where it's like, no, I just watched you count it for like an hour and a half. So that was my Damon Jones story. Didn't show me too much hustle, but teach his own, and
But so he did have the money though.
He did have the money, but like he counted it. And I was trying to make it seem like it was like a magic trick. Like, I was going to say like, oh, it's $7,184. He goes, oh, I have a $7,000 $184.
$7,184 bill.
Yeah. Like he made it like that, but it's like, no, I literally watched you for a very good amount of time counting in your head as I would then take.
I don't even think I actually heard that Damon Jones can't count in his head. He needs to say every number out loud.
Probably. And obviously he won't remember this, but he will.
There could be people like that. I don't think Damon Jones is one of them, but
he's not. I'm guessing he's not a card shark. But yeah, it was it had an interesting.
Moral of the story: play cards with Damon Jones.
Yeah. But yeah, it was very like again like you have like names of players on this team too. It's like Donnell Marshall, Shannon, like guys that were like like video game guys. Like you have them on your team in a video game. You're like, oh sweet, I can do this. But it's like in reality, it's like they're not going to give you what LeBron.
I will disagree that if you had them on your team in a video game, you would think it was sweet.
Like Shannon Brown could dunk. Donnell Marshall could kind of like hit some threes. Like
Donnell Marshall was at a time tied for the NBA record for most three-pointers in a game.
And like Larry Hughes was one of those players too that always like.
Larry Hughes during this run was just nowhere to be seen.
But he had like people like he was drafted high. People had obviously the hope had sailed at this point, but like
Larry plays only 2 games in this finals and averages 1 point per game in those 2 games. They had Eric Snow, who was many years removed from his finals run with Philadelphia. It was a very strangely conducted team. Like, obviously, like you had kind of like 3 bigs as your other main guys. Sasha Pavlovich, who was not a player that I think teams were clamoring for in the open market to be like, oh, he's our missing piece. Drew Gooden being your second
leading scorer
is on a championship team, or on a finals team. Definitely not a championship team. So basically what ends up happening here is that they get to the NBA finals, and it's like the games are pretty close, but it's just like I think the looks were a little deceiving. That nobody could stop Tony Parker, and LeBron did not ultimately play his best. Cleveland very much looked like a team that should not have been in the NBA finals. Like this was when there was, I think, as wide of a disparity as ever between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. While LeBron getting to the NBA finals was still, I feel, incredibly impressive as definitely the main guy at 22 years old.
Yeah.
It was a huge accomplishment.
And you're going to get guys that know how to, they're like San Antonio again.
21, yeah.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
San Antonio's built for this. I mean, Parker, Duncan, Ginobili, Bruce Bowen was still, frustrating defensively. Just, not.
Oh, yeah.
Not well-rounded enough Cleveland team. And again, I think LeBron also early, still early in his career. And I think he, the LeBron of today, with what he can do, as far as shooting his range, back then would have, also been good. I think he was still getting better in a lot of those kind of areas. Yeah,
but he didn't have an efficient series in the least. And I even think in that last game where they lost by 1 point, he was 10 for 30 from the field or something like that. 42.8 true shooting percentage, 18.3 turnover percentage. That's really, really high by LeBron standards. An 83 offensive rating to 104 defensive rating, 10.6 average game score over the series. If you're like talking about his least efficient finals, it was a train wreck. I just think the fact that San Antonio had 3 Hall of Fame players. Timmy was still their best player. Tony just had the best like 4-game series. But you had 3 Hall of Fame players in their prime who had won. I guess this was Timmy's 4th ring.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of championship experience, a whole different level. Yeah. So LeBron was 22. Sorry, but I just think it was awesome they got there, and this to me is, I would say, just a more impressive for the fact that he got to the NBA Finals with the team that he had.
He carried
with no expectation that they were going to win.
Oh, totally. Like, again, Cleveland was still fringing on, playoffs were like a nice plus because, again, they'd only gotten in recently. LeBron's like,
no, they were a pretty high seed, I would say. But yeah, they were a very recent. Yeah, they had just made the playoffs that year before. LeBron misses the playoffs his first 2 years in the NBA, like getting close, but still with somehow better records than like Michael Jordan's first few playoff teams. Just want to throw that out there. But the NBA was different back then. But he had just made the playoffs that year before. Second year gets to the NBA Finals. Takes a little while to get back. Doesn't have the best time there. Now let's get to the good times, because I think we're going to see that LeBron James. This is where I think from 2012 on is where you have, obviously discounting last year when he did not make the playoffs, mainly due to injury, because I think if he would have been healthy, the Lakers would have at least had a chance to make the playoffs.
No, totally.
But and had a good record with him in the lineup. But I think 2012 is where like playoff LeBron kind of starts happening. But I'm really surprised to say this. I think his 8th best finals was probably 2014. And it's hard to say that because he was so damn good. So Kawhi Leonard ends up winning Finals MVP, but let's read off some of LeBron's averages during this NBA Finals against San Antonio. They lose game 1 by 15. They win game 2 by 2, and then they get rocked in the next 3 games. Over these 5 games, LeBron's averages are 28.2 points per game on 57% field goal shooting, 51.9% three-point shooting, 79.3% from the foul line, which is like ridiculous for LeBron James. That's I think one of his bigger weaknesses is he usually doesn't have the free throw shooting going for him. 7.8 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game to 3.8 turnovers per game, which is very unusual for him. So that's kind of a little dent there, especially since he had averaged 6.3 assists per game during the regular season, was at 5 in his pre-finals averages, and 2 steals per game. Kawhi wins Finals MVP. LeBron James still puts up this ridiculous stat line, on amazing efficiency, without a lot of help from his teammates, honestly. There's at a point where I think Dwayne Wade was hurt, and Chris Bosh just didn't have a great series.
Well, and again, we talked about the 3 Hall of Famers on San Antonio of Ginobili, Parker, Duncan, but then you add in Kawhi. They also have contributions like Patty Mills, Danny Green, Boris Diaw gave them some minutes. Actually led them.
Well, this is where they put Boris Diaw into the starting lineup.
Yeah,
They're like, oh yeah, Tim Duncan is our center and always has been, and we can play a skill player next to him, and it will do good things for us. It was.
I think LeBron was great, and you see that like that's where you wanted to be at, is like 28 points, you know, like leading the team in scoring by a margin. Like that's the kind of like the expectation generally. And
San Antonio shot 46.6% from three for the series. Yeah, they were blazing.
oh, great.
Danny Green shot 45% from three and was a below average shooter for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kawhi Leonard, like his efficiency was fantastic. Like obviously not necessarily doing it at the levels, like he has 9 points in his first 2 games, and then over the last 3 was clearly their best player and their main offensive option. In the closeout game, he I think has like 22 points on like 10 shots. Like
he was, and you know, just defensively, I think, you know, definitely made it.
Well, but that's a funny thing, because LeBron also has this like incredible efficiency, and you usually think of like Kawhi like kind of stopping LeBron James, and it didn't work. But yeah, I think they did a good job of kind of slowing down the rest of the guys, and Dwayne Wade averages 15 points per game, Chris Bosh 14 points per game, both of them like well below their averages in terms of like assists and rebounds per game as well. Dwayne Wade only shooting like 44% from the field. Chris Bosh was at 55%, but I think a pretty low volume. And yeah, LeBron just was taking a pretty big role, but wasn't as usual efficiency. The one thing I think they did a really good job with is LeBron wasn't like putting up big assist numbers. I'm guessing he was still passing pretty well, and maybe it was just missing shots, but obviously he wasn't his usual self as far as
they added a few other shooters to that roster too. Like you have Rashard Lewis, you have Ray Allen now.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, like you look at this team, I mean, obviously
a 38-year-old Ray Allen and a 34-year-old Rashard Lewis.
Ray Allen can still shoot it today.
Yeah, but like
if you give enough space.
More than that. Yeah, exactly. More than that, and like gain his shot off at volume, like stuff like that. Like Ray Allen still shot 41%, but he had 9 3-pointers in like 5 games. So
and then underutilized, like I mean, I think they had like an opportunity in the post to really neutralize Duncan.
Ray Allen also shot he shot 85.5.
Greg Oden only gets in two games for 1.5 minutes.
The thing you're leaving out there, sir, is that Greg Oden played in the NBA Finals. Okay? Just saying.
He did, but you know they didn't utilize that.
He's one ahead of Dion Waiters there.
That is.
Did they not utilize him, Jason? Because I'm pretty sure Greg was having a lot of trouble staying on an NBA roster at this point.
Oh yeah, looks like he's a trillionaire.
Yeah, other than the foul. That's the one.
Oh, he had a foul. Okay, yeah. I'm looking at the main box score. I was like, oh, it's trillionaire.
The foul really throws that off, and like typical Greg Oden getting that foul to be.
Yeah, like 1.5.
I want to see where he got the foul. Show me Greg Oden's finals foul, because whoever he would have had a really nice 3 trillion in the finals. Like tribute to Mark Titus there.
Yeah. Shout out.
Yeah. LeBron, I felt still played a tremendous like game in this finals and was still really good. He raised his efficiency even from like the regular season and from the pre-finals like playoff run. Other than basically having his worst assist to turnover ratio there. But yeah, I felt still played a very high level considering the other 2 players in the big 3 who were like, it's hard to say like Chris Bosh was past his prime, but like he played well that next year, but obviously had the blood clot issues that shortened his career. And Dwayne Wade was at a point where he was no longer, I believe, like the Dwayne Wade that was a top, 5 to 10 player for the many years before then. I even think in 2012, like it was getting to that point where he was still kind of there, but it was like getting to that point where injuries and everything was catching up with Dwayne Wade.
And like outside shooting reliability too, a little bit for Wade, and sometimes just like
which was never really like
his thing, but like aggressive, yeah, and sometimes it's aggressive like to a fault, like on some of his drives, like just not controlled. But yeah, like by the end of the big three, it becomes apparent like there's LeBron and then there's everyone else is like, there's a pretty big gap between him and anybody else. Period. And
well, the thing there that I also want to mention is that while I do say that about the Miami Big Three, the San Antonio Big Three was all past their prime as well. I felt Timmy still played really well in this series and like was in the kind of MVP like contention. Kawhi Leonard obviously deserved it. Kawhi Leonard had not been an All-Star yet, but was like the year before had played so well in the NBA Finals as well. And then I just felt like he was at that precipice. Does not even make it the next year.
Yeah.
It took like because with him it was injuries, and I think maybe that was a factor. Like I wonder if San Antonio like hadn't also like if it was maybe like just Timmy or somebody like that. But I don't know if San Antonio had an All-Star that next year. If Kawhi Leonard doesn't make it, then the year after that, he finally like that's when he gets into the MVP voting and Defensive Player of the Year, and he becomes that level of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, it's just interesting at that time though.
Like, the championship team.
When he won Finals MVP too, you're like, oh, is he gonna be one of those guys that wins the Finals MVP but then doesn't go? Because like obviously it was early in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, the potential. Like obviously he had the potential, but it's just like one of those things. You're like, yeah, because again, you think Duncan.
I think Chauncey Billups hadn't made an All-Star team the time he won Finals MVP as well.
No, totally. And Chauncey Billups still isn't getting any love in the Hall of Fame contention.
It's crazy. Yeah.
He's not.
Put Chauncey in the Hall of Fame, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Finals MVP usually just.
Yeah, Finals MVP and like he
usually good. Like to me, Iguodala's Hall of Famer as well, and I actually question whether he should have won Finals MVP. He clearly was. It was between he or Stephen Curry, but
Stephen Curry.
No, I think with what Andre Iguodala has done with making 6 straight NBA Finals, and the role he played, the work he did before he even got to Golden State. I know he's only made one All-Star team. Put Andre Iguodala. Yeah, he's like he could have been so much better, and then he's obviously like tantamount to winning. But yeah, let's move along in the list as well, and let's get to the first of what I have as I think a number of years where LeBron plays against a certain team, and I guess that's with a certain other team. He's playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he this was when he went back to Cleveland, and I'll say this year he plays really fucking well in the finals too. They just lose every game. And so I have as LeBron's 7th ranked NBA Finals 2018. In 2018, LeBron has a game 1 that is just absolutely bloody absurd. Like it's not even his like, I like it's probably one of the best NBA Finals games he's played, but it's also like one of the best like games he's ever played. Like so in game 1 of the NBA Finals, he's just absolutely dominant, and like pretty much like the whole season he had kind of carried this team on his back. I don't think a lot of people thought this team was getting to the NBA Finals. They get taken to 7 in the first round of the playoffs against Indiana. They kill the Raptors. Like, what else is new there? Yeah, and then they get taken to 7 against the Boston Celtics too. And LeBron basically like has to take over that game 7 to get them into the NBA Finals. He gets to the finals, and he is just playing like the best basketball he's ever played.
It comes out of the game with the 51-point game. Like
yeah,
that.
He has a 51-point game. He like, and then there are like a couple plays at the end of that game where you're like, how did he do this? Like, how does he make those last couple layups? He gets George Hill this insane pocket pass where George Hill gets fouled, and like just that amazing creativity there by LeBron, and obviously a nice cut by George Hill. George Hill makes the first to tie the game, misses the second, J.R. Smith somehow gets the offensive rebound. And we obviously, I know that they said that, like, oh, I knew the game was like tied. He didn't know the game was tied. He had no idea the game was tied. Dribbling out the clock for whatever goddamn reason. Just get, like, the fact they couldn't get a shot off at the end of that game.
Oh, no, totally. Like, I don't know.
If you missed a shot, like, that's fine.
I don't know what the hospital numbers.
Get a shot.
The hospital numbers for like aneurysms were that night, but it's like a direct correlation. Because again, the meme of LeBron just being like with his arm like out. Because
I think anybody in LeBron's shoes would have done that.
I think the older
like, oh, it's all good, JR. It's cool. Like it was. As somebody just watching the game, like, it was infuriating to me. It made no sense.
Oh, totally.
And then from then on, like, LeBron still has a couple good games. But
that's why it's amazing that he'd still bring J.R. Smith. Like, to me, like, I wouldn't even want to look at you after that for like years. But JR's
they got over it. They got over it.
I met JR. He's a nice guy. Usually a little high, so it's probably pretty relaxed. Like, easy.
That could have been the deal. But he has that the 51-point game, 19 of 32 from the field, 10 of 11 from the line, 8 rebounds, 4 of them offensive, 8 assists. His finals averages that year were insane. He was at 34 points per game on 53% from the field, 84% from the line, 8.5 rebounds per game, 10 assists per game to 5 turnovers per game, still a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, 1.3 steals per game, and block. Kevin Durant also having a pretty remarkable NBA Finals as well. And I remember Kevin Durant having this like absolutely absurd game 3 of the NBA Finals where he was fantastic.
Yeah, the 40.
I think Stephen Curry in game 1 was kind of like the guy, and like, yeah, Kevin Durant just had this one huge game. I feel rightfully wins NBA Finals MVP, his second. But yeah, LeBron James still, like, from an individual standpoint, and then like carrying the carcass of that team. Like, it was just
like Kyrie's obviously, like, Kyrie doesn't play.
Well, yeah, Kyrie was traded. So yeah, they make that Kyrie trade. It turns out doesn't work out that well.
Because Isaiah Thomas didn't become,
Isaiah Thomas has gotten hurt the year before.
Yeah, no, totally.
That was the major thing. Jay Crowder not really fitting in supremely well. They make a few trades and get a few pieces that I think helped them make it to the NBA Finals. I remember Jeff Green really helping them in the Celtics series as well. Kevin Love, I think, he still puts up like a pretty decent series, but on pretty like low efficiency shooting. J.R. Smith, really low efficiency shooting. George Hill, low efficiency. Yeah, Rodney Hood, not like tons of help. Yeah, it was pretty rough.
And you talk about, Andre Iguodala, for Hall of Fame. So you look at this team on Golden State, you got Durant, Curry, Thompson, Iguodala, J-Ron. Like, those are 5, Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And, Draymond.
That's the lineup right there.
Yeah, Draymond, Clay, Steph, Kevin Durant. I mean, these are guys in their prime. And then, just like that supporting, like, those Golden State teams for this era were just so deep.
I think the year before, like, some people kind of expected Cleveland to like give them a fight. This year, in 2018, like, I don't think anybody expected them to put up.
It's so, yeah, it was a lot. Again, LeBron really caring, and it's like you look at why he left Cleveland, and you're like, well, look around the room.
Yeah.
Like he's obviously searching for a greener.
Well, I think he left Cleveland for a few reasons, but yeah, it would have been very tough to have that salary cap work out, everything like that. And you can blame LeBron James for putting him in that situation in the first place. You can also blame him for taking him to the finals 4 years in a row. So yeah. We'll put that out there too.
Yeah, I think
and winning a championship for a city and franchise who had never had very much luck or really come close to it until he had gotten there.
They owe him a lot.
Yeah. So in my next finals for LeBron, we're getting into the sixth. Let's go to the year before. And that's 2017 against the Golden State Warriors. And he plays a great series again. He really, like, I felt he was playing some pretty big time basketball, kind of going with Kevin Durant, kind of like spot for spot. Definitely, like, still the thing with he and Kevin Durant is usually going to score more points than LeBron James. LeBron James is just going to do some of those other things. And I think in this finals, he does those other things. It just so happened that Kevin Durant not only had more help from his teammates, but he also had improved at some of those other things too. So, like, Kevin Durant's averages in the 2017 NBA Finals, he is ridiculous efficiency, like 55% from the field, 35 points per game. 55% from the field, 47% from three, 93% from the line, 8.2 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game. Yeah, Kevin Durant was balling in this one. But yeah, so LeBron is at
33.6.
Yeah, 33.6 on 56% from the field, 38.7 from the three-point line, a disappointing 64.9 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds per game, 10 assists per game to 4.2 turnovers, 1.4 steals and a block. And yeah, I felt LeBron played really well. And, like, you know, you could say he kind of went like shot for shot with Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant, the more efficient offensive series. And then also in the potential series tying game 4, or it wasn't game 4. No, it was game 3. So yeah, it's tied 1-1. And wasn't it? I guess here, wait. When does okay, so Cleveland wins game 4.
Yeah, they won game 4.
Oh, okay. No, it was game 3 where LeBron is guarding Kevin Durant on that last play. And Cleveland has been up like most of the game, and Durant steps into a three-pointer and drains it right in LeBron's face. It was a huge moment for him, and you could tell that step closer to winning the NBA Finals. LeBron still puts up a hell of a playoffs, but yeah, it ultimately that was another year where he had a disappointing NBA Finals results, and they lose in 5 games. This is, I think, of his 3 finals against Kevin Durant, like, I think this might have been Kevin Durant's like best individual finals. And yeah, I just feel like it's a little bit better since they at least won a game. He had a little bit better of a team as well. Also putting up like huge, like, just efficiency numbers also. But still, yeah, coming up short in the finals. And also, like, finally going up against a guy who I think puts up like monster numbers like he's putting up in the NBA Finals. And yeah, they had kind of like breezed through the East that year also. They had 1 loss going into the NBA Finals, and then they lose the first 3 games, win game 4, only to lose in 5. So that is 2017 NBA Finals, and that is LeBron's 6th ranked NBA Finals. Coming in number 5, I have the first time he played the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, 2015, Golden State's first championship. LeBron, efficiency-wise, not very. But the reason I have this rated higher than the other 2, where he puts up ridiculous numbers on better efficiency, it was the level of team. I would say, one, you could say Golden State wasn't, you know, like this dynasty yet, but they were getting there, and they had this great team. And LeBron puts Cleveland up 2-1, and I think honestly this was like against all odds, because Olynyk had ripped Kevin Love's shoulder out of its socket.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to have Kevin Love. He was pretty imperative to them being a contender. And then Kyrie Irving is hurt. They still close out the Eastern Conference Finals. He plays game one. I think it was even questionable if he was going to play game one. Plays well in game one. Tears his ACL. And he, he's out after game one. They lose game one. He tears his ACL during that game.
And then Golden State does something, at the time that seemed insanely crazy, which is like ditching the center and, kind of having that lineup. Because like I remember Mozgov just not fitting in, and like you'd think in theory he should be able to post up. I mean, because he is the tallest guy on the court. But just again,
this is where I disagree with you. I feel like other teams have done that before. But yeah,
successfully in the finals, like that
was kind of the norm where you would make like the roster change. Golden State doesn't have like the traditional five, so like that's the one thing. But they have Draymond Green, who is like insane in his own right and basically is a big, or can play as a big, and then
strong enough, yeah.
Like Golden State has this ability to run teams off of the court, and they ran Timothy Mozgov off the court. Cleveland just didn't know it. And Timothy Mozgov putting up good individual numbers while Golden State is just beating them mercilessly on the offensive end, like on Golden State's offensive end. Cleveland's defense had some serious issues there. Because I remember Mozgov having like a 30-point game or something like that. And so they're playing like Mozgov, they're playing Delhi. They're playing Ron's jumper. Like, it's the
scrappy.
Yeah, it's Delhi like having the scrappy game where he like stops Stephen Curry, and so it was an interesting series. I just thought it was amazing that LeBron won those two games and they only lost 4-2. Like it just seemed inevitable that Golden State was going to win that series due to their injuries of.
And it's his first year.
Very key pieces that helped that next year.
The first year back in Cleveland as well. So it's like
that too.
A lot of
and like Cleveland having like no playoff or NBA Finals experience outside of LeBron James. They had Mike Miller playing 5.7 minutes per game in 5 games. Oh, they had Kendrick Perkins. That would have helped. Also, rookie Joe Harris, I believe.
And also you have, again, LeBron, you have David Blatt as the coach.
Yeah.
Who you don't see again at the end of the next season. So again, first year in Cleveland, like things are changing, but I think.
Yeah. LeBron averages 35.8 points per game, 13.3 rebounds, 8.8 assists, and he does only shoot 39.8% from the field, 31% from three, 68.7 from the line, averages 1.3 steals and half a block. But yeah, I thought it was just kind of like a pretty, I thought valiant effort at the very least. And I think his most memorable like finals loss of him just kind of trying to go all out and take a team that this is like even though the efficiency kind of almost like brings you back to 2007 against San Antonio, he was definitely much more efficient by then, much more aggressive, and he just had like he was at least trying to take it to the rack and was having much more success doing so. Just the team just couldn't hold off.
And like Golden State was such a balanced offensive throttling effort. Like it's obviously was proven to be very difficult at those times to stop. But no time for losers.
Yeah.
Because now we're the top 4. LeBron has 4 championships. We haven't talked about any of the winning ones, so no time for losers. We're going to talk about the champions. Number 4.
So it's tough to rank like his winning teams.
Yeah.
I am going to go with this year. And the reason I go with this year is, let's face it, LeBron winning 3 championships, and I think 2016 just in general, and like his him even getting to 2 more NBA finals and being impressive in both of those finals. I think we're just at the point where it's almost like he doesn't really need to do much more. He doesn't have much more to prove. And you could say, like, I wouldn't have a problem with ranking this as, like, maybe even, like, it would be hard to rank it second for me, but maybe third. But yeah, I feel like it's this year, and he and Anthony Davis were just such a formidable duo. I think Anthony Davis was his best complementary piece during NBA Finals run, and was at a point in his, like, Anthony Davis is literally, like, in his prime, and I think a more impressive prime than Kyrie Irving, and then maybe, like, Dwayne Wade had gotten to the point where he was, like, slightly past his best basketball. Though, you know, I'll have him coming up very shortly, and he did play very well in LeBron's first NBA Finals win. But yeah, I as much as we talk about the other issues that this team had, I still feel like this is was a good team. And
LeBron's energy just, again, lift up this team, and just, like, he's improved so many things, like his shooting range, and during this playoff run too, in the bubble, like, he hated the best player on the other team. Like, he was like, oh, this guy's doing well, like, put me on them. Like, that's why he got Jamal Murray. That's why he wanted, like, he wasn't afraid of whoever that player was.
Plus, the other thing I will factor into is that they were going up against a Miami team that was depleted, and
then also wasn't expecting necessarily to be there.
Well, they got there,
but
they were depleted.
They were,
in game 1 of the finals because Bam Adebayo gets hurt. Goran has the plantar fasciitis. Bam does come back. Goran comes back for that last game, but clearly is, like,
not where he should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
of his normal self.
I think LeBron on this team too. He's like he's almost like a terrifying player in the fact of, like, if I screwed up, like, I'd be afraid to, like I feel like after they lost those 2 games, like, in the locker room, like, I'm guessing he was going off on people. If I were just to speculate, I don't know for a fact.
What can you do? I don't really know what to say to that.
Yeah, during the game, like, he has that fire, but, like, I mean, that's what Michael Jordan did too, and, like, that's why they won, because, like,
Michael Jordan literally kicked people's asses. So LeBron verbally kicking people's asses, maybe not as painful as what Michael Jordan actually did in real life.
It's like torture, but yeah, like, I think he's, like, he's got these guys, like, they want to play well for him, and he kind of enables them to be better. And
I think with a majority of this team, like, obviously Rajon Rondo had won a championship before, but you had Danny Green, so you have a couple guys that kind of know the ropes before. But yeah, like, Anthony Davis had not really had much of a playoff run. He made it to the second round.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
But yeah, he was going with a lot of guys who hadn't had a ton of experience. Like, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is their 3rd leading scorer in the NBA Finals. Not much of a playoff track record up to then.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma, no playoff track record.
No playoff track record, yeah.
Yeah, Dwight Howard has lost in the NBA Finals and is a player that I don't really enjoy watching very much. It's not very enjoyable in this NBA Finals.
Best basketball a decade ago. He's not up. Yeah.
But yeah.
JaVale.
One thing I will say, Markieff Morris, while Game 5 was, like, everybody will make fun of that forever. Yeah. We have some wonderful memes of Danny Green missing the shot and Markieff throwing the ball, like, to Hell's half acre. But he was, I think he was really important. I think against Houston he was huge. Having a center that can step out and
also,
not get, like, annihilated on defense. And then in this series, like, he was their best backup big.
For sure.
I'm not really counting Kuzma as a big, but yeah. I would say Morris was the guy. Like, I thought in Game 4 when they played Markieff in the second half instead of Dwight, like, at all, I thought that was a great game plan, and I think that was a huge reason why they won. I just felt like they were getting really slow starts with Dwight Howard. As valuable as he is as a defender and like could do great things as a rebounder too, like he still is a playable NBA player. But yeah, he's just they. I would say the one series where he was valuable was I thought he played all right against Portland, but the one series where he was really valuable was Denver.
Denver, because
he had all those big guys.
Yeah, you have to put one out there.
He's like a selective guy that you would play. But I thought LeBron in this particular NBA Finals was fantastic. I felt after the first 2 games you could have made an argument for Anthony Davis being the MVP. From Game 3 on, it looked like LeBron James. Like it really did. I know Anthony Davis played a huge role as a defender as well. Personally, I thought LeBron stepped up as a defender and made some fantastic rotations. I love the fact that he was on Bam Adebayo. I know people will point to his switches and, like kind of letting somebody else take it. But I feel like that's kind of like the Lakers scheme too. Like it's just kind of like one of those switch heavy schemes. Plus he has this gigantic role on offense where he really needs to get their offense rolling.
No, totally. Like just under 30 points a game, like 8.5 assists. I mean, he led the Lakers in rebounding as well. Like,
oh yeah.
Like just under 12 a game. So I mean, he just
crazy.
He was everywhere you needed him to be. I mean, his outside shooting has gone so much better throughout the course of his.
Oh man!
To now, like
Game 5, how and like that's another thing with this series. He had some like the last 2 games. He was just incredible. Game 5, he really wanted to end that. And he was playing out of his mind. Well, I thought the pass to Danny was the right move. Some people would say you want him taking the last shot, LeBron taking the last shot, or Anthony Davis, or whoever. But man, I know Danny wasn't shooting really well, but getting a guy with that kind of experience in that situation to get a really open shot, and then not only that, they had the chance to, and LeBron gets open again, and Markieff just doesn't see him and thinks that Anthony Davis is in the low post. He was kind of more going towards the high post so he would have an easier catch and then could just make that look at the basket rather than having to catch potentially a tough guarded lob. But yeah, it was I thought in Game 6 he was fantastic. I thought over the series he was really damn good. Jimmy Butler, of course, having 2 huge games in both of their wins, and then playing really well in every game outside of the last game where it just seemed the Lakers had their number.
They got to that point where it's like in the fourth quarter just stretched.
How absurd was the Lakers defense in Game 6?
It was
just they were really shooting on all cylinders there.
No, totally. They had that game plan. They wanted to go home.
Rondo stepping up big time in Game 6 too after struggling in the couple games before, and it was. I felt like just in general, the run was very impressive. They had only lost 3 games up to that point. They finished the playoffs at 16-5, and it just so happens when you have 2 of the players who are maybe the most efficient post scorers. I wouldn't say post scorers. Let's say around the basket scorers in the NBA. Good things are going to happen. High volume. Finishers around the basket. I'm pretty sure I checked Synergy and they were 1 and 3. If I checked it again, they probably would be there too. And this is just in terms of efficiency, and then also just getting there at a ridiculously high rate. I felt LeBron was very aggressive as well. There were some times where he definitely took a little step back, has the kind of rough first half in one of the games, and then by the second half though he was back to his old self. I think the fact that he had the least to prove by this whole run, I know other people will say different things, but I felt in 2016 he could just kind of cut it off there and people just be like, this is one of the best NBA players in the history of the game. And now I think it just further cements that.
Well, as Rachel Nichols said, like to him after the game, like longest prime ever.
Maybe.
You know, because it's just like he's year 17 and he's running faster than like, you know, if you measured like
I think Kareem won a Finals MVP at 37. So like, you know, if we get there, then
I guess
I think he and Kareem, as far as NBA players, like both. Like,
well, it's interesting to see if LeBron again, you know, because gets himself back in a regular. Because you know, this year obviously he was pretty pissed at not winning regular season MVP. Because Kareem won his last one in 1980, so that there was like a 10, you know, like his last 10 years. He didn't win regular season MVP, but
LeBron's won his last MVP in 2013.
Yeah, but
it's been a while.
He feels like
he's gotten close since then, but yeah, it's been a while since he won his fourth MVP. At number 3, I have his first ever NBA championship against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It just seemed like he was kind of a man possessed and really, really wanted to finally win that championship.
And you know, and he leads them in points, rebounds, assists. Like, I mean, he just comes out and gets it. And like, I think they built a better, you know, Miami, you know, had, you know, they got Shane Battier. Like, I just felt like they were like a little bit more solid.
Yeah.
And
they had a tougher path through the Eastern Conference that year as well. And he has this like enormous game. They are down 3-2 to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and LeBron has this like ridiculous Game 6, and Game 7 is also fantastic as well, I believe. Yes, he was. And yeah, he just kind of took that over. They lose the first game of this NBA Finals, as it tends to be the trend with most LeBron James.
Yeah, which is finals teams. He's won the 4 championships, but he's like rarely wins game 1s. But like,
so yeah, they lose the first game in this one, and yeah, like Oklahoma City's looking good. Like it was
Durant they won.
Yeah, Kevin Durant outscores him. Russell's having a good game.
Yeah, Russell's game 4, he has 43 points.
Yeah. Russell had a huge game 4. But I just feel like LeBron's like overall consistency in this series. Kevin Durant outscores him in the series, but like everything else LeBron does is like a much higher level. Like I think Kevin Durant was kind of struggling on the boards, not passing nearly what he ends up passing once he gets to Golden State, and I think is in his clear prime at because Kevin Durant doesn't win his first MVP until 2014. I would say Kevin Durant at this point was one of like the 5 best players in the league, and some people might have said like the best player outside of LeBron James. But yeah, he is not necessarily like prime Kevin Durant yet. He's still, I think, maybe the best scorer in the NBA. But yeah, he's not in his prime as of yet.
Oh, and like Harden's, you know, Harden comes off the bench for the
series. Huge, yeah, exactly. And the other thing is James Harden has a pretty bad NBA Finals.
No, totally.
But yeah, this is an Oklahoma City team where they have Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Serge Ibaka. And it was a good team. And like I remember their first win of that series. It was a tad controversial because I feel like at the end of the game, like LeBron might have gotten away with a foul on Kevin Durant, but they didn't call it. LeBron gets fouled and makes both of his free throws, which was unusual. I think in game 2, he goes 12-12 from the free throw line. He does. And yeah, his statistics over that NBA Finals, 28.6 points per game, 47.2% from the field, 18.8% from the three-point line, so not doing much there.
Yeah, you see how that's improved in his career, because it's like again, he took them, but he like now he takes them because he can make them. But
he wasn't. It's funny because I think he was doing a little bit better. Like over the regular season, he was at 36%, but yeah, he still like in the playoffs wasn't shooting very well from beyond the arc. 82.6% from the free throw line, 10.2 rebounds per game, 7.4 assists per game, which was very high for him in Miami. In that last game, I think he has like this monster triple double too. Yeah. Like I think he had like accounted for like 60 of their points. Like he was just completely dominant. I think they like kind of killed them in that last game. Yeah, they win by 15, but I think it was a lot more at certain points. And yeah, so gentleman's sweep, wins his first NBA championship, and gets the best of I would say a very highly touted matchup between two of the best players in the NBA.
And it's like you think you're going to see the Thunder, again.
Yeah, you would have thought. And
this could
they
be
got close. They got close.
He did, yeah. You thought this could be a thing, but obviously he does face Kevin Durant in the finals quite a bit later. But yeah, like
before the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead, the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead against the Warriors, and the Warriors come back and win that one and get to the NBA finals, so they could do the same thing.
But I think for LeBron, I think like great. He played great because he needed to win just to like shut some people.
Yeah, this was big. This I think really got him over the hump. And then let's get into number 2, because that next year, I think when you look at LeBron's like individual regular season, like I don't think he was ever sharper than he was in the 2013 NBA season. He was just like at his most efficient. He averages 26.8 points per game. This was his last MVP award. 56.5% field goal shooting during that regular season. 40.6% from three. 75.3% from the line. 8 rebounds per game. 7.3 assists to only 3 turnovers per game. 1.7 steals and 0.9 blocks per game. So like still, I think this was near like his defensive prime as well. Yeah. And where he was probably trying a little harder on that end than he typically has in the last number of years before he at least goes a little bit harder in the NBA playoffs. And then his finals averages like don't like jump off the page. They're a little lower than his regular season, but I just think this was, I think the second best team he went up against in an NBA finals. They were very complete. And then over those last 2 games, like just, I would say the last 3 wins for Miami against San Antonio, because they get down 2-1, and then they tie the series, lose game 5. LeBron's last 2 games were like masterpieces. And game 6 was one of like the craziest games I've seen in my life. That Ray Allen shot at the end, but LeBron makes the shot that gets them within it was just so insane. Like San Antonio really screwed that up because it looked like they had won the championship. Like they were up like 8 points with like no time left. Like it was like 40 seconds or like some like stupid amount of time. And somehow, some way, Miami comes back. Chris Bosh makes 2 crucial plays. He gets the offensive rebound that gets Ray Allen. So you have a guy like Chris Bosh who gets the offensive rebound, is smart enough to say, oh, I can get it to like this the best shooter in the world. Also in a situation where like you needed a 3. So I think that was probably the other reason why he was using his head there. But yeah, so gets it to Ray Allen, like one of the best shooters in NBA history. And but I felt LeBron in game 6 like just played a spectacular performance. Game 7, I think down the stretch like takes over the game, and it was really, really impressive 7-game series win. And in what I feel is maybe his most dominant season just on the whole. Like I think him at the top of his game.
I think at the top of the game, and I think like if he wasn't in Miami and he was playing by himself, like like the numbers he would have put up would have been
insane.
Because he was just.
I think Miami certainly helped the efficiency too, and like at that point they had really kind of become this cohesive group. Oh, the one player I also wanted to mention, I think you mentioned him briefly, but Shane Battier, huge for them in the Oklahoma City series. I should throw that in there because he was like that guy was hitting shots at a level he normally doesn't, and that was really big for them.
Well,
But yeah,
and in this series too,
San Antonio having a guy like Ray Allen certainly helped a lot too.
They have Betty and they have Ray Allen. It's like
Ray Allen in the first time they played San Antonio was really, really big, obviously. And like just having his shooting ability, like the stuff they did that year too, like they were just they had a 27 game winning streak. At one point, I think they go like 45-3. And I like Birdman also was like kind of an awesome role player for them. Like played his role, I think, about as well as you could possibly play it. Like that was a nice acquisition here also.
Well, again, Miami goes back to back on the championships too. You're thinking, you know, like this is going to be,
yeah,
you know, and then they lose in the finals next year, and then LeBron's out of there.
Well, okay, I think also we need to factor in this is like the year where I think the decline of Dwayne Wade.
No, of course. There's
yeah. So that's not like they obviously they have a chance that next year, and you think they're like a pretty good team, but I think San Antonio also was building like this great team too, and Kawhi Leonard took like an additional step that next year also. So yeah, it was still a pretty formidable foe. And I think that not a huge surprise that next year that San Antonio has a better team with Kawhi Leonard taking that next step. And yeah, so with Dwayne Wade, I think this is one where LeBron, like over those last couple games, like really has to carry the team.
Yeah. Oh,
doesn't have as much help from Dwayne Wade as he had that year before.
No, totally. And then, of course, we get to the crescendo here.
Yeah.
Number one.
I think one of the best NBA Finals performances in history.
And I have, we're talking 2016, his first championship with Cleveland, the team that you never thought was
his only championship with Cleveland.
But again, like he took them to the level that nobody ever thought that this team Cleveland would ever get to. And also, like, I will make a side confession at the jump. I did miss Game 7. I didn't get to watch it because I was coming back from Spokane, Washington, because my wife's grandfather had a second bar mitzvah, and I had to come back to LA from that. And it was like right at that time. And I remember just getting off the plane and like immediately checking my phone. The game was like close and like waiting for my Uber and just like reading the game cast. And yeah, I am still pissed off about that. Like if they mention that second bar mitzvah again, I'm like, fucking Game 7. Like that was, I know, trust me, it hurts me the most because I was like,
of all the games that I have missed in my life due to like, you know, family events or like,
it was worst.
Yeah, that's pretty low down.
Hurts.
That's pretty low down, man. That's like that was brutal because it was just such an awesome NBA Finals too.
Yeah,
like,
LeBron's playing it, you know, as Golden State.
LeBron in Game 5 and 6 plays like about as well as he could possibly play. I felt like Game 7, like he was okay. Like he wasn't, because Draymond Green has this like monster Game 7 also. LeBron was good, but like wasn't as good as he possibly could be. But like in Game 5 and 6, he was ridiculous. Like what Jimmy Butler did in Game 3 of the finals this year, LeBron like did in Game 6 against the Golden State Warriors team that had gone 73-9.
Yeah, this is the greatest regular season team of all time. You're thinking like because what was their win streak during the year? Didn't they have a big?
I think it was infinite. No, I'm
yeah, like they
had yeah, it was their win streak was they didn't lose 10 games that year until the playoffs. They finally started losing a little bit. They lost. I think they lost 8 games in the playoffs.
Like the greatest regular season team of all time. You got LeBron is like.
And Steph Curry does get hurt, and Andrew Bogut gets hurt, and Draymond Green gets suspended Game 5. I still find it no less impressive, personally. In Game 7, they were like, you know, pretty full force. Andrew Bogut was hurt, but as we said, like they realized what the death lineup was, and Andrew Bogut wasn't necessarily like playing that same role that he had played in the year before, I feel.
And if you remember nothing of LeBron James in his career, you just want to like one moment that chase down block
yes,
is like
if you watch like the last little bit of that NBA Finals again, and you'll realize there's a scoring drought for 4 minutes. It was 89-89 forever.
Which is like, but both of these teams aren't.
Like they're all taking shots, and you're like, oh my god, this one's gonna put Golden State ahead. This one's gonna put them ahead. Oh, Cleveland has a really nice look there. Oh god, doesn't happen. But yeah, and then Kyrie Irving hits the crucial shot that decided the game. And I think LeBron ends up like hitting like a free throw and then he tries to dunk on Draymond Green and doesn't happen, but he gets fouled. Yeah, he ends up having a great game there in the final game.
And I'm sure Michael Jordan was cheering him on because he didn't want the team with a better record than him to win the championship, so he could always
don't mean a thing without the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
73-9 losing just like 73-9 losing just fine, I guess was like their t-shirt they made maybe.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. I used to
That's a good one.
I used to work hard for the Warriors, yeah. During that time to try to, keep the ship afloat. Yeah,
that is funny.
It's so like, again, it's for LeBron, and obviously it's just the odds are against, they're not in your favor. You're playing against this.
So he has a triple-double over that last game too.
And he gets all the
wasn't Draymond didn't have a triple-double. I think it was like really close. Yeah, he had 9 assists. Draymond has 32 points, 6 of 8 from 3, 15 rebounds, 9 assists. And then LeBron was at 27 points, 11 assists, 11 rebounds. And also like 3 blocks and 2 steals. This is the one where like LeBron's like defensive, like he averages 4.9 stocks per game. So he's at 2.6 steals per game, 2.3 blocks, 8.9 assists per game to 4.4 turnovers, 11.3 rebounds, 29.7 points per game on almost 50% from the field, 37% from 3, 72% from the line.
He's getting over 2 blocks a game.
Yeah. Crazy. And he it was a wild series. Like just so much fun. So many twists and turns. Yeah. Cleveland does kind of like kill it in those 2 games, but like what they needed from LeBron James and Kyrie Irving over those 2 games, like, and I think like Kyrie, to me, Kyrie's game 5 is like one of my favorite performances of all time. Like he just the level of difficulty of some of the shots he was making on like great defenders, and like he the efficiency he did it at. Like I think in game 5 he was like 17 of like 23, I want to say, like
weren't they like
something ridiculous.
And also like they're one of the few like 40-point duos in a
17 to 24. So yeah, so Kyrie shoots 70% from the field on his way to 41 points. And LeBron was 41 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists. So like they combined for 82 points in that game.
Oh, they're the first. I was wrong too. They're the first teammates to ever both do 40.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was nuts. LeBron in the next game scores 41 again. Kyrie, I think, had like 20, I want to say. And then in game 7, Kyrie makes some absolute crucial plays also. Finishes with 26 points. And yeah, like Kyrie at his offensive, like the best I think we've seen him over a playoff series as well. He was absolutely instrumental to that happening, but it really came from LeBron. And then I remember like Synergy pointing out some statistic that like LeBron either like scored, assisted, or created like 58% of Cleveland's offense. It's just like huge offensive burden. And then also like the 4.9 stocks per game, like that's crazy. So yeah, he was absolutely possessed. And to me, that's one of the most impressive NBA Finals performances I've ever seen over a 7-game series. He starts off pretty rough and like I would say pretty low, and then got a lot higher from there. And yeah, just the being down 3-1, and then those last 3 games, like just he went into like LeBron take it.
I'm not gonna lose.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, like we are gonna have more points than you at the end of the game. Like whatever.
109 points over the last 3 games.
Whatever it takes. Yeah, like
not to mention all the rebounds, assists, block shots, steals, insane plays.
And it's crazy because we're talking, 10 finals. He's been in the league 17 years.
Yeah.
With the chance to keep, possibly, next time we look back, we're going to eliminate some of those ones at the bottom because hopefully he's going to have some.
I think LeBron's like playoff record right now is 39 series 1 against 49 played. Yeah. I believe that's like 79%. It's one of the highest marks of any like major player in NBA history. There are a few that do have higher. Michael Jordan does have higher. Robert Ory. Like there are a few. Tim Duncan. I think Tim Duncan is up there too. But still very impressive. And it's pretty big time. So I think he's close to the most series won in NBA history. I think he's either one behind or tied with Kareem, somewhere around there. But yeah, he's still
3 years. He's still 3 years ahead of where Kareem, ended. Like Kareem ended at 20 seasons. LeBron.
Yes.
So 17. So I mean,
with LeBron coming into the league at a younger age.
But I think you're looking in the future. Like, how many more years do you think LeBron is hitting at this level?
Like, so I think this year you still had like at least an argument with him being the best player in the NBA.
Yeah.
He's been at or in that conversation for ever. I think since 2008 or so, like it's been a long time there. And I think in 2012 there was like absolutely no question anymore. I even remember like ESPN had an NBA rank in 2011, and I think LeBron was number 1. Even after that pretty disastrous NBA Finals appearance. So he's been that top player for a really long time. I feel like by next year, like they're probably going to start relying on Anthony Davis offensively even more. And you kind of think maybe the mantle will be slightly passed over to him. But I could see LeBron being like near this level for at least a couple more years. And Father Time catches up with everybody. I thought Kobe was invincible, and Kobe had this insane pain threshold that LeBron seems to have as well because he barely ever misses games. But yeah, I think he's at least going to be like a top 10 player for the next couple of years. And after that, then you can kind of see where it goes.
And
but he's obviously a very special player and going to be pretty instrumental to winning teams, I think, for the next few years.
And then that leads me to my last question here. Do you think he stays in the league long enough to play with his son?
Obviously will depend on injuries, but do I think that's his plan? Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's his plan. I think that's what he wants to do.
Because I don't think there's ever been a father-son in the league at the same time.
No. I don't think that.
I don't think that's ever happened. Like in baseball, that can happen because you can play to your 110 because you just have to like chew tobacco. But like,
and yeah, baseball, yeah, obviously longer.
Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey put together, and like, some of that. But yeah, like I think if he can play with his son, like that is
Tom Brady and Justin Herbert right now, for instance.
It could be. There's situations where it could be because that was like the largest.
Hey. Just throw it out there. Look at how Justin Herbert's playing right now.
I mean, he could have been hanging around Eugene all those years ago. But like, yeah, I think that would be, to me, that would be super, super epic. Like I hope Bronny, keeps up this level that he's at where he can hopefully make that happen as well on his end, because obviously NBA's never.
Yeah. Like
NBA's
it's not just a one-way thing. And
yeah,
then
NBA's
the NBA. I'm guessing LeBron wants it to be prep to pro and everything there. Like time's not his friend. I'll say that. Like
he's got 3 more years of Bronny in high school. Bronny going into his sophomore year right now.
And like I just wonder how much LeBron is going to want to play once he gets to the point where he can't really do what he typically do.
But does he turn into sort of this like, point post, I guess, where he just kind of does the things he likes to do, but he's not that.
That's what he's now. Like
a little bit. Like I feel like he can still run the floor, and that's the difference in.
He's
the ultra elite. Is that like he's not just like a guy that walks the ball up the court? Like
he's not slow.
He's there, and I think
he's still blowing by people. He's he's a remarkable athlete.
But he's definitely never the.
You just wonder, you wonder when that's going to be affected.
He's not
I just think he has like this basketball IQ that's kind of second to none, and he'll find a way to be effective as like an older player. Like he's an all-timer. And
the bargaining agreement does change. They allow for prep to pro. Like, and it would just be amazing to see like what could happen. Does LeBron, force his team to to trade for him? Does he try to like free agent go or does he just want?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, I think honestly, like players probably have dreamed about even being in that situation. And I think that's like if LeBron could finish his career in any way, like I think at this point, like he obviously wants to win still.
Oh, totally.
But he's at this point where he has 4 NBA championships with 3 different teams. He's won a lot. He's won a lot.
Dude, in the league, and, people want to play.
Yeah, I think the next step, like if let's say the Lakers can't carry on and keep winning championships, then you kind of expect them next year to run it back. It seems like a lot of guys are on player options, and maybe they'll do something to get like a more consistent third option, let's say, or something like that. And then we'll see what Anthony Davis ends up doing, because he's going to have to make a decision. And I'm guessing whatever he signs this offseason, because I think he's going to opt out, will be pretty short term, or at least have a couple player options.
Yeah, well, it's hard to go.
But I think he's coming back. Like he's gonna come back.
Come back to the Lakers. Yeah, it's hard to commit that long term because again, you don't know what LeBron's future holds. Obviously, like.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's going to come back. But yeah, the Lakers could be in a pretty tough position, like cap wise.
Well, that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, you have great players. They demand great player salaries. It doesn't give you as much.
Getting underpaid, if anything.
Yeah, totally. Well,
the way the cap is.
Yeah, it's structured, and bird rights and some of those things. But you kind of back yourself into these corners where it's like, okay, we have these guys, but we can't really get much around them. That's why I think Boston, has been in good positions, because they're like, they spend money, but then they also have these these like ridiculous draft picks too, so they can have like young talent assets as well as like money locked up with other guys.
Yeah, but does Boston still have they have the 14th pick this year, but like I feel like the picks are kind of run out, right? Like
they're pretty much done. But I mean, you had Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Like I mean, you have
the way that they eventually built.
Yeah, and you could afford to bird rights them, and then you could also use them as
the next thing they'll have to worry about is Tatum's extension, and then I think they'll be in a tough position. But yeah, at least they're in a position where they are competing for NBA final spots and
while going through these motions.
For sure.
But yeah, this was
having their players locked in, having their kind of core locked in for quite a while at a young age. Yeah. While still competing.
But I think LeBron, this was a super special, great year for him.
Yeah. And the thing I think we can pinpoint here is that LeBron had 2 finals that you could say were kind of rep performances, and 8 where he was incredible. And then the 4 wins, it's so hard to say which one is more like is better than another. I think Golden State is just clearly the most memorable.
Of course, and I think it's just an
we just wanted to take a look at his 10 NBA finals. And if you guys have any disparities in our rankings, or you feel like there was a point we left out, please, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, and just like or any
Lakers fans, I'm sorry. I have it fourth, but believe me, that's still a very high ranking in my book. And yeah, he played fantastic, and I definitely think there's a case to move it up. It's just, man, like those Game 7 series or the 7-game series he played were so memorable.
There's so much.
His first one was so memorable too.
There's so much at stake, but I think it was I think the bubble. I'm so relieved and happy that the bubble worked out. It was great, and I just feel like we saw so
all the precautions they took, and
yeah, I think they did an amazing job, and like. I mean, obviously, I would love basketball to return to its NBA arenas, but if they have to go back to the bubble again, totally cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's harder on the players.
I know it's psychologically it's damaging because obviously you're like an isolated, you're not in the world, but
yeah,
it was
like Steven Adams says, it's not Syria.
Yeah,
but it was like
the resort, but it's still like it's lonely.
Yeah.
And it's it's not the life that you want, but yeah, I feel like the season ended on such a great note. There was so much emotion, especially with the Lakers, of this year with everything going on. So it's just a great way to cap off the season. So I'm super stoked. Unfortunately we don't have a date yet on when NBA is going to return, but you know what? Obviously, if you listen to our podcast before, the one thing that we get very excited about over here is the NBA draft. So that is next.
Planned to be November 18th.
So that's next on the radar. Obviously, some free agency things will probably come up.
Free agency should be shortly after that. I thought it was originally November 25th. I think they might be moving it to December.
Yeah, because they still haven't come out with those dates, but obviously we'll be on the front lines of whatever's going down with that once we have that information. But we definitely appreciate you guys tuning in and just showing some love to LeBron because he is. We're lucky. We're lucky we get to see it. It's
enjoy this. So yeah, I also want to once again shout out the It's About Joy podcast by PD Webb. You can find him on Twitter at Above the Break 3. You can find that on Stitcher and Spotify and other podcasting platforms. I was on episode 2. I heavily advise you to listen to episode 1. It was fantastic. It's great for anybody that is a basketball fan to hear these people talk about their favorite players, and PD provides some fantastic.
And he's the guy to show some love on Patreon as well because he does some analysis.
Yes. His draft work is fantastic.
So if you love it and you appreciate it, definitely give him a follow on Patreon as well.
For sure. And, as far as I'm concerned, I am actually heading to Utah on Thursday. I'm going to Idaho, then going to Utah. I have a camp that I am going to be a part of on Saturday. It is the Hoop Scene West preview camp, powered by Prospective Insight. Pro Insight is a website or scouting service that I have been working for, and very much looking forward to that. And I'm sure I will come back with some stories and some top players from that as well. Certainly some very cool, highly ranked high school players.
Guys,
yeah. And then there's one East Coast guy who's pretty intriguing as well, who will be there. The highest ranked guy I think from the senior class is Nolan Hickman, who's currently at Wasatch Academy and committed to Kentucky, who's a player that I very much enjoy watching and I feel is about to get his kind of due on just the national scene. I think he's considered to be like a top 40, 30 guy in the class. And very excited to see Nolan again. Very excited to be in the gym again. I think we're taking every precaution to make it a safe and fun camp for everybody involved. And very much looking forward to that. So if you want to email us, we are viselandpod@gmail.com. I am NBA Draft Mikey V on Twitter. He is at J Visenberg. And you can follow our work at Viseland on Twitter. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, anybody that shared our podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just if you want to review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please, by all means, that'd be wonderful. It's great things for us. And we love podcasting and talking to each other. We love hearing the feedback from you fine Viselanders. So, thank you once again for stopping by.
Thank you all, and we'll check you next Wednesday. Have a good week, everybody.